Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Confidence to Homeschool podcast. Today we're going to talk about that 2 to 3 year commitment that I ask you to take in order to get really confident in your homeschooling journey. We're going to go over the 4 reasons why that I believe that 2 to 3 years is absolutely crucial for you and your kiddos. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Confidence to Homeschool podcast with me, Kelsieshelaine. I'm a lover of all things Jesus, an exceptional wife to an exceptional husband, and a homeschooling mama of 4. Together, let's trade in those insecurities and questions of if you can homeschool for the confidence that homeschooling was the right decision for you. Through simple homeschooling techniques, growth in God, and small mindset shifts, we have the power to change generations and set our kids' hearts tuned to the Lord and a love of learning. So grab your lukewarm coffee, because who gets to drink it hot anyways, and let's shave off years of that how to homeschool learning curve. Alright guys, so I feel like at one point whenever I was talking about homeschooling, one of my friends told me, make this a 1-year commitment. She said do it for 1 year, especially because I was going into kindergarten with Addison. And she said, decide year by year and child by child what is the best thing for them. And I do agree with that. I agree with the fact that if you are doing, trying to decide if this is going to work for you or not, it feels really good to be able to just commit to 1 year and decide 1 year per child of whether this is going to work for you or not. But on the flip side of that, it takes longer than 1 year to learn exactly what you are needing from your child to gain your confidence to be able to homeschool and to figure out what your child's needing from you. Like I have one that needs to be able to sit on the couch or a bed and all of her books in her lap. And she needs to be able to be moving and swinging and be, sometimes upside down, especially at the beginning. She's not like that so much anymore. But she required a lot of movement whenever we very first started. And I had to learn to be okay with that. And luckily, as a mom with ADHD, I required that as a kid as well. And so I had some understanding of that, and I gave that grace. But I do know that there's other moms out there that would be a little alarming to, is letting them move and wiggle and all of the things. So I would just encourage you that if you are nonstop telling them quit moving, figure out a way that they can learn what they're learning while moving. And so I would do little checks, what did I just say? And if she could listen to me and she could hear me and repeat back to me what it was that I just said, then we would move on. If not, and it was something I needed her to sit and actually hear, then I would have her come and sit down next to me and we would actually go through it again. But I have Asher, who is 6, and Elijah, who is 4, and both of them really require being set down at a table, at a countertop, whatever it may be. They need a surface and they need to be able to sit and actually watch what it is that they're doing, which is more like their dad. He really prefers to have a desk if he's going to sit and work on something. He wants a desk. He wants the old-fashioned, let's sit down and let's pay attention kind of way. And so I think that that's one of the first things that you learn is what is it that they need? Maybe they need some music going in the background. I love to throw meditation music on Alexa. Maybe they need complete silence. Maybe they prefer having some noise. You are not going to know right off the bat exactly what it is that you're going to need and what they're going to need from you. I had a wonderful teacher. Not until my senior year of high school did I learn that I really needed my back to the wall where everybody else was in front of me. She let us sit on a beanbag in the corner. And this is obviously with a group of a bunch of students in a classroom. But I didn't realize that was a really good learning experience for me as a senior in high school, to realize that the noise going on around me, somebody sneezing behind me, would break my concentration, and I would have to look up, look around, and see who it was that sneezed. Then I would be seeing all of the other things that were going on around me. And then I had to figure out where I was when I was reading, and it wasted a ton of extra time. So I say all of that to say, step one is you're going to learn what they need in their learning journey. And that takes a little bit of time. That takes some time to figure out what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and going from there. Now, that's probably not going to take you 2 to 3 years to figure out, but the confidence to be able to say, we are not doing school at home, we are doing homeschooling, and those things are different, and I am allowed to make up the rules as we go along, depending on what works for those kids. That confidence is what's going to take some time. That confidence is what takes 2 to 3 years to build, to be able to bust out of the norm and thinking about the comparison of what your friends or your the people that are around you that are sending their kids to regular schools, and how they're doing things versus how you're doing things, because that is a real growth mindset, is trying to figure out what you're doing and not comparing it to where everybody else is doing. Because of course we know comparison is the thief of joy, and this is supposed to be fun. Homeschooling is supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be a wonderful, great period of time in your life that you get to bond and enjoy that time with your kids. And I really have been grateful and loving of that period of time with my kids. I love seeing those light bulb moments. I love being the one that's there whenever they have aha moments. I love being there when they have their questions, and the fact that they feel like they can ask any questions and nothing is off the table. We can discuss it all, and we can use everything as a learning moment. So even through the trials and making it through all of those hard times, like I've told you guys before, the first year or two when we were really falling behind, and I was truly just trying to do school at home, and I was concerned about falling behind on everywhere else, and I was truly concerned about, like I told you, my friend that is a teacher, that, and to be fair, she sees a lot of kids say that they're going to go do homeschooling, and then the next year she sees them come back and they're even further behind than they were because their parents didn't take the time to take a step back. They were trying to do school at home instead of doing homeschooling and figuring out what their kids need. It takes longer than a year to figure it out. The next thing that I want you guys to know and hear is, and this is really directed more towards that person that is pulling their kids from school, you're gonna find holes from where they have been in public school. You're just going to. Like, they have to move forward in a classroom setting. And I want you guys to hear my heart on this. I mean, those teachers in school, there's some wonderful ones, there's some not as wonderful ones, but man, do they get dealt a rough deck of cards. Like, you never know what you're going to get. You never know the students you're going to get. You get 1 year to understand them and to figure out their learning style. And then you have all of these things going on, and you have misbehaviors, or you have all of these curriculums that you have to do and all of these check marks that have to be completed. They have so much going on that it's just going to be more likely than not that your student has just a couple of areas that they didn't fully master or grasp a concept in order to be ready to move on to the next one. I've told you guys before about one of my friends that her daughter was, I think she was 13 whenever she pulled her out of school. And she had to go back to multiplication before she could move on to her pre-algebra stuff. And that's totally and completely fine. But I remember a conversation with her where she called me and she's panicking, freaking out. And she's like, what do? I just feel like she's not grasping this concept. And I'm like, okay, we'll take it back. What is she struggling with? Where is she having a hard time? And whenever she really dialed it back, she figured out it was multiplication. And they spent a week or two just drilling in multiplication. And that was all she did for a week or two for math, was just multiplication. And then all of a sudden, she was able to fly through the rest of her work. So maybe for your kid, that is spelling or reading or whatever it may be. And maybe for your child, that is not a week or two fix. Like maybe reading is an area of struggle and it's going to take a little bit longer. And you hear me say over and over again, allow your child to be where they are without the judgment of others around you, because you're not doing this for others around you. You're doing this because you feel a nudge from God and called to homeschool your child, and you feel like it's the best thing for them, even if you don't know how yet. You are the most determined mama and you are going to figure it out, and you can do it, and I promise you will get it figured out from somebody who very much struggled at the beginning. It took me a while to get it figured out. And that's why I knew that this podcast was needed, is the confidence to at least try to do the homeschooling process. So I say all of that to say, I really want to encourage you to be okay with where they are, take it a step back where they need to be taken back, and really be able to drill in on those areas. And you're not going to necessarily feel confident in your ability to teach them when you are drilling into areas where they're already somewhat frustrated because they're aggravated that they did this in third grade. Why is it that they have to do it again? Or I should know this. They already have their own preconceived frustrations with the school system and with where they are at that moment. And so you're just going to have to give a little bit of extra grace with not only yourself, but really, really for them. And let that be a understanding mommy moment. Like, let that be a time where you cuddle in next to them and let them know it's okay, you're not behind, and I got your back, kind of thing. Because that's really, really important that they know that this journey is with you and not, just belittling them or whatever. Connection is so incredibly important in homeschooling. Okay, so building your confidence, pulling your kids from school, filling the holes that they need to be filled, that's going to take some time. You're going through that trials and the errors, and you're making it through and you're figuring it out. One thing that I wanted to tell you is somehow when you are at that breaking point where you're like, this is just not working, I can't figure it out, I'm not sure how they're learning, so on and so forth, somehow the breakthrough happens where you get just this little bitty glimpse of like, okay, they figured something out. And I can't tell you what it is. Your journey's going to be totally your own, but somehow just be looking for, I'm at my breaking point, the struggle is real, and then they're going to give you a little bit of a glimpse of why you're doing exactly what it is that you're doing. Another note that I want to give to you is, like, Addison's brain works more like David's brain, my husband's, whereas Asher's brain works a lot more like my brain. And so if you're struggling teaching them something, and they may learn a little more like your husband or their father, if you can have that conversation and figure out, how can I teach this to them to where that makes more sense to them? And my husband has been a champion of multiple times swooping in and drawing out a picture that I would have never thought to draw out. And it makes all the difference in Addison's world of understanding. And she picks it up. And he's also a little more of a drill sergeant, so he's like going to drill it in until she really does fully get it. So she's going to work a little bit harder for him, or they're going to be doing it all day kind of deal. The next thing I want to talk about, step 3, is you will also, it takes those 2 to 3 years to learn their learning style. Do they like more hands-on? Do they like a mastery curriculum where they are just doing the same thing over and over and over in different forms until they have mastered? Or do they get really bored with a mastery curriculum and they're wanting more of a spiral curriculum where you do something, you move on to the next thing, and then it reviews the thing that you did before, and it just kind of spirals back over themselves, and it just builds slowly over time. Some kids really prefer spiral. Some kids really prefer mastery. Some really need hands-on learning, and some just want the black and white, give me the bare minimum instructions and let me do it. I don't want my time wasted. I don't want any fluff. I want to go. And some really love, like, put it into a story for me. You know, like, there's so many different ways of learning that you're going to take a couple of years to really figure out what it is that works for them, and so on and so forth. So I really want to just encourage you to give yourself and your child the grace in order to go through this learning curve. You have been their teacher before. You were their teacher as a baby growing up. You can be their teacher again, and I very much promise you, you're going to figure it out. So I want to encourage you that you can absolutely do this. And then last but not least, you are going to get more confident in choosing your curriculum. This goes back to the learning style, but there are so many different curriculums out there. And y'all, I went through this year of all of the bright and shiny curriculums all over the place. And there's so many things out there that you can choose from. There are a couple of staples that I am learning that there's a lot of homeschool moms that really, really enjoy them. And you just kind of, like, there's so many ways to learn about the different curriculums. There's YouTubes, there's podcasts. We even have a wonderful family that has put together an entire, like, store of curriculum that you can go and hang out in and do all of your research and talk to a mom that has homeschooled 8 kids. You know, like, I really want to encourage you to pray for those people in your community that are going to help lead you along your homeschooling journey. If God's called you to it, He's going to call you through it, and He's going to bring you exactly who it is that you need in your path to be successful to this. So I really want to encourage you with that. But that's going to take some time as well, finding the right curriculums for you and your family that you enjoy and they enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy it as well, you're going to not want to teach it. And as they get a little bit older, I would say around 4th grade, you kind of become a little more hands-off with their curriculum and become just kind of like checking up on them and explaining things if they're getting a little bit further behind, like explaining or they're not understanding something, like, how is it that I can help you to understand it? My friend that I was telling you about earlier with the 13-year-old, I love her method. She does the first time, if she gets it wrong, she tells her it's wrong. She has her go back and do it again. And if she gets it wrong the second time, then they sit down together and go over it and try to figure out which part it is that she is messing up on. And then that way she can give her a little bit better of an understanding of how it's going the way that it's going. But it's taken some time to find the curriculums that works for her. She is fully a mastery student. We have learned, because we started her out in The Good and the Beautiful, which is a spiral curriculum. And we just learned that The Good and the Beautiful spiraling was not working for her daughter. That mastery was totally and completely the way to go for her. And now we know that. But it took a couple of years of her and I sitting and collaborating on thoughts and her doing her research and all of the things. So I just want to encourage you that I tell you take a 2 to 3 year commitment. I really do mean you're going to feel so much more confident in that 3rd year of homeschooling. I promise you, if you will just give it your all for those 3 years, survive through the struggle of the first one. The second one, you're going to feel a little bit better. And then by the 3rd one, you're going to be super confident in what it is that you're doing. And you're going to feel capable of going, okay, you hate to color. You don't have to color that. If that's going to be the point of contention with you, is that you have to color this, why don't you use a dot marker instead? Like you're going to figure out to be able to leave things off in a curriculum if it's telling you that you need to do, I don't know, memorize a poem. You can memorize something else. You're going to be able to figure out what works for your kid. And I just want to encourage you in your homeschooling journey that it takes a couple of years to really get it under your belt, but that the years are so beyond worth it. So you can go with either method. You can go with choose by year, by child. But if you're going to start homeschooling, I think that by year, by child comes after a good 2 to 3 years of learning how to be their teacher in this world of your homeschooling journey. I feel like you just really have to give it those 2 to 3 years to at least learn yourself how to be their teacher and what they need particularly. And then I can promise you after those 2 to 3 years, you're probably just going to be soaring, and then you can choose by year, by child. Some children are going to need a heavier friend load. They're going to need more social activity. And that's whenever you can look into, is this the best option? Do we add a co-op on? Do I just make it a point to be out of the house 2 to 3 days a week? Whatever works for you. I have always said, and I will always say, there is not an A, B, C component to this, the steps to success. This is a journey that you take on your own with God, with your children, or you let Him lead you where it is that He wants you to go. Because after all, they're His kids first and our kids second. And He knows exactly the future that He has planned for them. And I just truly believe in trusting His process over trusting what we think the world is telling us that we need for our kids. So that is it. And I hope that you have the very best day. If you loved this podcast, please scroll down, give me a review, give me 5 stars, share it with a friend. And I am so excited to be able to meet with you guys again this week. Have the best day. Hey friend, thanks again for joining me today on your journey to the confidence to homeschool. I hope this podcast blessed you with one more tool of success. If it did, please scroll down to the bottom of your screen and leave me a review. Share it with a friend. Just remember, confidence in anything takes practice, so let's grow.